It's Chase from On the Table Gaming, and once again the flames have flickered, providing a glimpse of what's to come for Song of Ice and Fire, the miniatures game. So far, 2 Visions in the Flames articles have been released, What the Future Holds and Control in 2021. Be sure to subscribe to stay tuned for more updates in this series as we unpack the latest of Song of Ice and Fire updates from CMON Games. Now, in these first 2 reveals, Michael Chanel addressed some of the updates and disruptions that 2020 brought to A Song of Ice and Fire, but the big news is that amidst the challenges of the year, the dev team have taken the time to look back over the work from the past 3 years and put into action a new game plan to implement some of the lessons they've learned along the way. So in this past year, the dev team have done a full balance pass for every individual unit, attachment, and tactics card in the game. And to that end, it's been announced that CMON will be releasing updated card faction packs for each army, and these cards will give the players the opportunity to own a physical copy of everything for their faction that is released up until that point. And this is huge, as included in these materials are reviewed and updated tactics cards. So I can't stress what a big deal this is and how excited I am to see their approach to this update. So tactics cards are a central aspect of the game, and all past units and their balance have always had to take into account the faction's tactics cards. And, since every unit has to think about this, we have 2 factions, the Starks and the Lannisters, that were designed, potentially conceived, up to 5 years ago, and those tactics cards have been locked in. Now getting to go back and take a pass over everything, and they're not just saying Starks and Lannisters, it could be all the factions, but what it allows them to do is to open up design space, clarify some things, redesign, revamp, and change anything that's necessary to really give this game the ultimate balance and set a course going forward to make sure that any traps or pratfalls are managed. So now Michael Chanel has been quick to manage expectations, saying that most things have not changed. The passes, he says, were basically mainly to balance some numbers and importantly streamline a lot of things. But to that end, at the end of the first What the Future Holds article, an example of a revamped character was revealed in the form of the updated Baratheon Stag Knights. Baratheon players can rejoice. This is a unit that people were talking about a lot wanting to change. And so the current version of the Stag Knights draws its power from a static attack profile and its unwavering fury ability, in which bonuses are accrued for losing ranks. Now, while in the 2021 update revamp, the 8-point unit gains added survivability through the Order Resilience and gains significant combat output from Stag's Fury, a cumulative ability tied to the game round. Now, while we're obviously missing the context of the rest of the update, this particular change intrigues me as we see an entirely new mechanic, connecting an ability to the round of the game. And sort of thinking outside the box like this is really cool, and I love to see that in their designs and units. We see another example of this in a little bit. But the idea is that it's going to provide you with more choice points. The order tokens, I'm a big fan of orders. During your battle, then you get to make a choice in this round. Do I activate my order or not? When do I do it? That allows for more skillful play. And in this whole unit design here, you can see that they're really looking at that question of what makes this faction Baratheon-like, right? They're known for their resilience, and this unit I think really exemplifies that. And I'm excited to see what other passes on units look like if they're like this. Now, in their second article, Control in 2021, Michael talks about the revamping of how control pieces will work after the 2021 update, focusing once again on the philosophy of choices. Now, during our Visions in the Flame podcast with Michael Chanel and lead developer Fabio Curry, Fabio referred to the fact that the goal was to dilute some of the abilities, spreading it out amongst the faction more so that you have more pieces, that you have choices that meaningfully come together in interactions. So rather than having one unit that completely shuts an opponent's unit off, like the old Walder Frey, they want control pieces to force people into making interesting choices. Now, this new Walder Frey is a powerful NCU which may only be activated once there is no other units you can activate, making it always the last piece you play in your force. But when he does activate, you get to replace the zone's effect with any zone, and if your opponent leaves the crown zone open, you get to heal a unit, you get to weaken an opponent unit, and you become first player on the next round. This is huge, and there's plenty of room for counterplay. As you know, he'll be the last piece being activated, but it really puts some interesting pressure on you. And I think this is really cool. Coming from a combat sports background originally, my coach would often talk about pressure and applying pressure. And we always define pressure as you feel pressure when you don't know how you're going to find your answer to something, right? You don't know how to solve this problem. That's when you feel pressure. Once you find that answer, the pressure's gone, right? Then you're executing, then you do. And Walder's going to put pressure on your opponent to make them think, okay, how do I solve this puzzle? And it adds an extra layer, which I think is really cool to this game. And you can shut it off, you can stop it, but you got to always be thinking about that, devoting some of your brain space to that so that you can shut him down and play around him. And if you're using Walder, you can think about how can I use him to force my opponent into these traps that I can set up with maybe other units, where he's got to make a decision between blocking that crown zone or dealing with something in a board state. Similarly, Varys shifts from a hard counter, shutting down an opponent's plans entirely provided you make that dice roll, to now becoming a much more intriguing trade-off system where through expending order tokens, he can gain an effect based on a zone you claimed. So your opponent has a unit on its last legs, well, maybe they don't want to claim the attack zones because you're going to get some free hits on them. And so now as your opponent makes their moves on the political board, Varys is going to be in the shadows, getting his own things and subplots in play, putting out his subtle spider webs. I think this is another really cool piece. It's going to make the game really interesting. So I'm a huge fan of these changes. And I know they're shared without the greater context of the upcoming 2021 changes, but just what I've seen here, the possibilities they present, has me incredibly excited. And especially in two ways. Number one, I think the mechanics are cool, some really cool ideas here. And if these are exemplars of what like other units might look like, sign me up. But secondly, because they're keeping the theme too, right? Varys feels like Varys even though he changes. And in fact, I think maybe Varys feels more like Varys now. But let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on these units. What do you think of the Baratheon Stag Knights, Baratheon players? Are you rejoicing? What do you think of Varys and Walder? Particularly Walder I'm interested in, but also Varys. I think he's really compelling too. But Walder I think is a little bit more like, ooh, this is an interesting unit. So let me know what you guys think, what you'd like to see in future updates. What's on your wish list? Are there certain units you hope get a pass? And in the meantime, hope you get your miniatures on the table.